Hey, most of you watching this, you're already aware of who I am. My name is Neal. Some of you, literally, you might just be meeting me for the first time. And if you're meeting me for the first time, hey, now Neal's my name. Neal's not who I am. And when I say that, you might ask yourself the question, well, who am I? Well, who I am is a multi-dimensional, infinite spiritual being that's expressing through a human body, and I'm here present, and I'm here in direct communication with the perception of you. And now, this is an interesting way to start this communication, and I specifically have started it in this way. And the only way that I'm able to even like speak from who I am is through trust. Well, trust in what? Trust in who I am. And in this episode specifically, what I'm going over and speaking to through what I've directly gone through and am currently navigating is like, all right, so I trust myself, but then how do I now translate that trust in myself into my words, into my actions, into my way of being? And that's what this episode is about. That's what this episode is from. And if you stay here for the whole episode, by the end of this podcast, you'll be on having awareness of how Neal specifically navigates trusting in himself, and also in how that letting go of needing to trust in Neal is partially how this has come about. All right, so that's that. And now these live streams, these are happening every Wednesday at 3 o'clock p.m. And I invite you to come join these live streams and be here, be live, be connected, be present. And these are heart communications that are coming from a place that's transcendent of brain, and it involves brain, but it's coming from a different place. And so I invite you to come and participate in the communication that is a heart communication that is happening Wednesdays at 3 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And later on this evening, I host Natural Balance virtual masterclass, which is a masterclass that I hold live on Zoom, and it's a free masterclass. And I invite you to join this. And this Natural Balance virtual masterclass is specifically a masterclass that is an opportunity to practice being whole and complete, and practice being whole and complete through connecting, through networking, and through both giving and receiving gifts, both giving and receiving offers, which are your contribution, and they're my contribution, and they're the thing that we can give, and we can give them to whatever degree we've opened up. And so Natural Balance Virtual Masterclass, this is at 4:30 p.m. and it's happening tonight. And today is November 6th. And this evening on November 6th, I'm in an inquiry in Virtual Natural Balance Masterclass of how to come from eternity and operate in a perception of separation 3D world. How to be in a 3D world and come from an eternal place. So now here, um, here, how like trusting in oneself. Well, there's a distinction here. So there's the whole self. There's like all the parts that are connected, and then there's the partial self. There's the perceptual self. There's the egoic self that is the distinction that I'm creating that exists inside of the whole self, inside of the true self. But this egoic self is a self that is constructed of four components. Now, there may be more components than this, or there may be less, but I'm going to speak to four components. And with this distinction, this is what I'm speaking to when I'm speaking to ego. So, these four components are what the ego uses to communicate. So, they sound like this: my perception. This number one. Number two, my expectation. Number three, my opinion. Number four, my truth. Now, with my perception, my expectation, my opinion, and my truth, those are how the ego will, what it will speak from. When speaking from the ego will use those terms and communicate. And the whole self will communicate specifically from the truth. And now the truth is the thing that's beyond these perceptions, and it's the thing that's beyond the expectations and beyond the opinions and beyond the my truth. And when coming from the true self, that is coming from the one self also. And when coming from the ego, that's more coming from the I individual. And so I used to think that developing the ego, like developing the I, was like one of the main reasons for being here on earth. Like, all right, so if this I gets developed in such a way and programmed in such a way, um, there's a consequence of what's been programmed, and consequence is neutral. It's like there can be perceived negative and positive consequences, and but it's a fruit of the program. And so I used to think that life was like this building up of the individual, and um it and it isn't that. And so um that's my belief, that it might be discernment, but it also might be a perception. And so when I used to trust in the egoic self, this perceptual self, that is actually a self that is mostly designed of programs. Like programs are what shapes an ego, and they come in all shapes and sizes. And when I when I thought that that was like the point of life, and I put whatever degree of trust I put in this ego self, there were times when like I would have anger, and there were times when I would have sadness, and there was a lot of times when I would have anxiety. Specifically with anxiety, like I would look into the future and see things that I perceived were going to happen that literally weren't happening. Like I was present, looking, observing into the future. Then like being in the present and like having anxiety over the perception I had of what might occur in the future. And so um and and it was related, like when looking at the past and the future, and being in the perception of time, that's like related to the egoic self. So uh there there was distortion when I trusted the egoic self. Like there were times when like I would make a decision and literally the decision I made would like have uh like a positive impact. Like literally making a decision and then like having uh things show up, having people show up, having conversations show up that literally assisted like my spiritual growth, but also translated into like the physical environment and like what was going on around me physically. Like some of these conversations, what unfolded was like the receiving of a vehicle. Another conversation was like the opportunity to assist somebody on their land and grow produce and like grow enough to eat and grow enough to like sell at farmers markets and share and so this was while I was still like in Indiana in the United States. Like um, there were times when like things clicked, things worked, but what in that there was still this perception of like me and you, and this perception is true in reality, but in the truth, like there's a greater perception where like you and me are literally uh we we don't exist in the truth. Like what exists is infinite connection, the full on remembering of the I am in all of us, and then taking out the all of us, and then what's left is the I am, and that's the truth. That's what I'm declaring as the truth, and so trust when I trusted in this egoic perception, and included in that is the name Neal, and included in that is programs of what to eat. Like eating healthy food is a program. Like uh, and I love healthy food, and like I eat a lot of healthy food, but also there's people that have lived tremendously long lives and ate unhealthy foods and drank alcohol and smoked tobacco into their 90s, and so there's this so all these programs that we have, like even with the example of eating healthy food, like this is a program that assists in shaping and creating the, like in my case, the egoic construct that when people acknowledged would call that construct Neal. Now um during the time when I trusted in that, when I trusted in Neal, when I thought like he could like, yeah, like he's got this, like he can make amazing decisions, like at that time there's a level of disconnection that is present, and it is only a perception of disconnection, and but really when thinking that like I was Neal, when I was like so in that thing, um what was that uh like I was going somewhere right now, but I literally don't know the direction. So I'm here present now. And um, when I would trust in Neal, like, all right, so here's the thing. There were both good and bad things that happened that I perceived. And that's like separation. And so it's interesting now when I actually don't trust Neal, but I have faith in God. Like I have faith in something that's beyond Neal, that Neal's included inside of. Like it doesn't discount Neal per se, but what it acknowledges is that there's something bigger, and there's something that actually is the truth, and that there's something that's beyond like Neal's my truth, and that thing that's bigger than like any one person or any location, but includes all persons and all locations. That thing is like the most efficient, truthful decision maker there is, and that we, in these human bodies, we can literally access, we can access God, and call it whatever you like. Call it source, call it creator, call it love, whatever you call the thing that, in this case, I'm calling God. Like having a foundation in that, and having faith that God actually, can make decisions through me, and that, uh, like I can. Neal doesn't even necessarily need to make decisions. That's when the trust shifts to trusting in the one self. And when I say Neal doesn't necessarily need to make decisions, that's only possible to the degree that, like, I'm surrendered, that Neal's surrendered. And so, with with speaking to that, when I trust in the one self, I have more faith in every word I speak, and I have more, capacity in the actions that I take, because I don't need to do it for me. I don't need to do it for Neal. Like, I don't need to do it to gain something, or I don't need to do it because I'll lose something. Like, it's like a purpose thing where it's like, all right, take this step, and then I can take this step that is being asked for based on purpose that's coming from a decision from God. That's when I like have a level of faith that is, it's literally, it's solid. It's a foundation. It's a bedrock that, uh, from that faith in the one self, and from the one self being the director and the orchestrator of the ultimate musical, um, when I'm rooted in that, and I have the faith, in that being the guiding factor in my life. Like, I've the trust in oneself, not in the I, not the trust in the individual or the ego or egoic construct, but faith that, like, that egoic construct can rest, and that there's greater capacity. So, the bedrock that I'm speaking to, that's related to, um, having something to stand on, having something to come from, and as we make decisions over, in alignment with God's will for one's life, which is what I'm speaking to with purpose, over a consecutive, consistent, time frame, and collective and collaborative, what happens is that the trust in oneself expands. So, um, what I just literally just communicated is this thing that the trust in oneself, the shift in perception can happen in an instant. But the trust in oneself is something that's grown and expanded, in one's, life journey, and it's grown and expanded, as we make decisions, and as we, uh, reflect and see how those decisions were, like, decisions that were made from control, from needing to survive, from needing to provide for the individual, or if they were surrendered decisions where the individual um, it was in the consideration, but it wasn't made for the individual. It was made, the decision was made because it was God's intention for that decision to happen. And so my point is, the trust in oneself and the trust that I have in the oneself. I don't trust Neal. Like Neal like still makes dumb decisions, and the egoic construct I don't trust. Like the egoic construct, like its focus is control, manipulation, status, significance, and so um, that if I were to trust the ego, I would trust the ego to uh, excuse me. I would trust the ego to control and manipulate and see about status and significance. But the trust that I have and the faith that I walk in and that I speak from is faith, and it's trust in the one self, the whole self, the true self. And from there, I can be here, I can be present, and I can communicate. I can come from that with full faith that we got this. God's got this. And even if I don't necessarily even have any clue of what I'm doing, um, that's on purpose. And God's got this. And with that, I love you. I honor you. Thank you for being here. Peace.